Well, good morning. Hey, let's talk a little bit today about what's the next step in building our napkin holders. So, we gave you a couple samples yesterday and talked about why we're going to do it. One of those skills that I want you to get from this class and doing any kind of project is how to work with lumber and how to laminate things. And so, what we're going to do today is show you the next steps in the process of taking skinny boards and turning them into wider boards. And so we do that for a series of different reasons. Sometimes we do it so that we can make little skinny boards into one big wide board. And that's a pretty good example up here in this corner. And down in this corner, this young man's doing the same thing. He's taking boards that are too thin for what he needs. I shouldn't say too thin, too narrow. And he's gluing them edge to edge to edge to make them a wider board. Sometimes we laminate materials like this top picture here to make the board more interesting. And so what we've done here is I've taken a piece of dark walnut and we have cut some scrap strips and glued them in there, which makes that piece of wood look much more interesting than just a big brown piece of wood. So what we're going to do today is show you guys the process by which we are going to select some materials and how we're going to laminate them all together, glue them together, and see if we can get you guys on your way to doing that. Okay? All right, so let's go next door and we'll get you guys laminating boards. All right, so I'm all set up here in the shop, and I have a couple things that I've gotten. I have some wood glue here, and you need to be kind of careful. The hole in the top of the wood glue is pretty big. This year, because of the pandemic, instead of having you guys put the glue on and clean it between each person, I will wear gloves and I will put the glue on for you. And then you will be wearing gloves when you do this as well. I'm going to go ahead and clean these all up. So you're going to grab 3 clamps out of the off the wall over there. The first thing you kind of need to do with these clamps is make sure they're clean. And so the way I do that is I open them up all the way. And then I take a putty knife and just at a 45-degree angle, I just slide this down here, and any glue that's left on from the last use, we're going to scrape out of the way, okay? So we got that all squared away. I've already done these 3. So let's talk a little bit about the material that I've selected. So it's kind of hard to tell in the camera here because there's a light directly above me kind of bleaching things out. But what I have here is I have picked 5 different types of material. The other thing you're going to notice is this is way more material than I need to make a napkin holder. And so what you're going to do is you're going to work with a partner. And yes, you're each going to make a napkin holder. However, we found when we used to glue together enough for just one napkin holder and then put it through the planer, we got what we call snipe and mill marks. And so the longer the board, the less of that you get. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you and a partner, hopefully somebody in the class with you, pick out your material, okay, the colors, the types of wood that you want to use. Also come with a pattern. So my pattern is right there. So I have these 2 pinky pieces on the outside called Grandis, and then I have 2 pieces of white oak, and then I have a piece of cherry in the middle, and that's the pattern that I want for my napkin holder. And I can switch this around. I could have put the Grandis against the cherry in the middle, but it's just all personal preference. So once you and your partner come kind of negotiate what you guys want to do, there's enough material here for 2 napkin holders, okay? And so let me show you the process by which we're going to laminate this. So I'm going to take my wood in the pattern that I have set up here, and I'm just going to set that off to the side. And then I'm going to grab my 3 clamps, and these clamps are pretty long, and you might notice that there's a piece of paper down underneath here. We always glue on paper, wood glue. We have wooden benches in here, and wood glue will stick to a wooden bench really, really well, and we want to make sure that we are able to clean up after ourselves and not destroy the wood bench. So the first step, number 1, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set my clamps up. And these boards are 30 inches long, so they're going to be out here quite a ways. Let me see if I can scoot the computer a little farther out of the way and slide this down just a little and this down a little. Okay, so I get my clamps wide open. They're being cleaned, and I'm going to set the material that I want to laminate in here, like such. All right, I think you can see mostly everything that I'm doing here on camera. This clamp down here is just a little bit, let me adjust that, right at the very edge here. So what I've done is I've come in about 2 inches from this end, and I'm gonna put a clamp. Then I put one in the middle, and then I'm gonna put one about 2 inches from this edge, okay? And so now we're ready to start the gluing process. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide those down a little bit, and I'm gonna physically turn these up onto their sides. And I'm going to do every one of them except for the last board. The last board we don't need to do anything with, okay? And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to put a pretty fair amount of glue on each one of those, okay? And what we want to do is make sure we have a stream of glue all the way down. We don't want any voids. A void is where there's a dry patch with no glue in it, and that's no good because that's going to weaken your project. We want these boards to never come apart. And typically, if we do this correctly, the glue seam should be stronger than the wood itself, okay? So typically when we have kids break these things, a lot of time we see that they don't break on the glue seam, they break next to the glue seam. Okay. So I have a little bit of glue on each one of those. And what I'm going to do is I am going to simply just rotate this down, touch and wiggle, touch and wiggle. And the reason I wiggle is I want to smear that glue around, okay? And a little touch and wiggle. And so now I'm going to slide this all the way back here. And let's start with this clamp on this end. I'm going to grab this part here, slide it up against, so now it's squeezing a little bit. Notice how this, it's probably hard to tell, but this one is sticking up a little bit. So as I clamp, I'm just going to press down ever so slightly. I'm going to tighten this up. And as I tighten, glue is going to come squeezing out of there. Then I'm going to do the middle one, and I'm going to tighten this just a little bit. And then I'm going to come down here and do the last one. And again, the boards are kind of not being perfectly cooperative, so I'm going to push down on them and tighten. And so what I'm getting right now is I'm going to go back. I'm going to slide this. Let me pull the camera back just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in here and tightening these down. And what I don't want to do is be such a maniac that when the boards are flat, I over-tighten them, and then the boards are cupped or bowed up. We don't want to tighten them that tight, but we certainly want them tight enough to push all the excess glue out and make sure we have good contact between boards, and that looks pretty good. So I have my boards all glued up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to write on the lightest color of wood with a pencil. Never use a pen. My first and last name of myself and my partner and the period of the class. So this would be period 1, and I'm going to glue this, let it glue. I'm going to leave this sit here for probably, I'm going to say probably 4 hours. With the clamps on. And then after the 4-hour mark, I can unclamp them and let it dry overnight. We need to make sure it dries at least overnight. And so this is going to work out really well. We're going to have, we'll have some of the kids glue on Monday. And then by the next morning when you come in, I will unclamp them and have the clamps sterilized. Or not, we'll spray them with the sterile, the stuff that cleans them. And then the next day, the next group can come in. So we're going to try to get these clamped up pretty early in the process so that we're in good shape. Okay. So a couple things to think about as we move into the next stages. You got to find a partner, somebody that's in class, in person with you that you can work with. That would be beneficial. Number 2, you got to start thinking about different types of wood. And I will put some photos up of the different types of wood for the at-home learners so they can help pick out lumber. And then the people that are in person, you can pick your lumber out when you're in class. Okay. So those are kind of our next steps to getting started. After we finish laminating and gluing, the next step is to scrape and plane. Well, that's the hard work. All right. So laminating and lumber is our focus today.